morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Al Bob. We're going to look at secrets today. And I invite all of you to come. Mm. There we go. Order Pizza Hut now and get a free large pizza late. That's a free pizza on your next order. So you can... But then referred to as a franchise. It's a production house, kind of like the Matrix. So we're going to go into some definitions from the law dictionary, what these terms mean. And I'm not making any of this up. If you look at Valentin's law dictionary, I'm going to show you guys some things that's going to get the wheels turning for you. These entities or institutions or systems are the primary method or modality by which your sweat equity is extracted out of you on a consistent basis. Money is always flowing up. It's being extracted out of your bodies, out of your sweat equity, out of your labor. So the whole thing is based about one thing: commerce. The banking system, or the banksters or gangsters or whatever you want to call them, have collectively, through thousands of years, have set up a situation where they can manipulate people to superimpose a legal system that is not based entirely on law, it's based on commerce. And as we'll get into it, I'll explain that we are not operating in a common law system anymore, although the common law is still here and we need to understand how to access it and how to use it to our advantage. But most people, unfortunately, are so ignorant of what the law is or what the codes are or what the statutes actually say and how they particularly apply to them. They just are used to functioning in a consensus reality that, at 18 or 16, everyone gets a driver's license. And, when I work, everyone fills out a 1040 IRS tax form, or because he said, or because your parents said, or because your parents were particularly indoctrinated in a system where everyone is functioning perpetually in this let's pretend game. The whole system is set up about one thing: money. Because the banks, through their politicians and legislational system, they set up a body of laws to further extract money, or set up a system that money is always flowing up. It's being extracted out of your bodies, out of your sweat equity, out of your labor. So the whole thing is based about one thing: commerce. And the system that we operate, if you understand Admiralty, it's a very esoteric system because the banking has been operating longer than 6,000 years, probably longer than recorded history, longer than the Code of Hammurabi, etc. But the mother is a vessel, or all of us are vessels, because our bodies are a warehouse, and you live within the confines of your skin if you take the concept that you're a spiritual being. Okay, so it's an energy vessel. So the mother is a vessel delivering a product, swimming down the rivers of the birth canal, and it's delivered to the dock or the dock door. And what is it? It's delivery of a human resource, because that's all we're considered. And we're talking about money. You're a human resource. So what is money? It's energy. That's all it is. The system is set up that it's the control and flow of energy from generally the bottom up, the basis of the foundation of the people, up into the hands of the bankers that further perpetuate and dictate more laws to further extract money. And we'll demonstrate this in just a moment. So a battery is pretty much what we're considered. If anyone has seen the Matrix, our bodies are our vessel. It's where we store the energy. We eat food. Its energy is transmitted. So this guy is
So you can go watch this yourself. This is on. Uh, this is the best kept secret in the entire world. Anonymous, right? Official. Anonymous is a great little channel. And let's see who is there just a moment ago. So, so you go to your anonymous and look at the different. So you have to realize that you are a product, and all through history, there is times when this occurs, right? We kind of get a realization. Why did Richard Nixon, right? Richard Nixon started the EPA. He started the Medicaid, Medicare. He started OSHA. He started what else? Many governmental entities of this nature that basically was a safety net for the citizen, right? And why was that done, right? Because it was first done so good old Mr. Rothschild could come in and basically he already owns you. You're already the product, right? You're born, you come down your mother's birth canal through that water. The dock signs it, right? It's just like Admiralty. When ships come into port, they are docked and they're given a birth certificate. So the money transpires through the port authority, right, which represents Admiralty law. So you have, common law and you have Admiralty law. You go into a courtroom and there's an American flag that's just a regular old American flag, and then there's that one over there that's the American flag and has a gold fringe around it. That's Admiralty law. So the bottom line is, if you understand the dynamics of all of this, and if you were to go, let's see, where is this guy? Here it is. Admiralty law.
According to Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, Admiralty law consists of both domestic law on maritime activities and private international law governing the relationships between private parties operating or using ocean-going ships.
Maritime law or Admiralty law. Legal term. 10th. Where is that guy?
Bit more freedom on the land, subset, OCA type stuff. You often see that they say, well, the courts operate under the jurisdiction. Bit more freedom on the land, subset, OCA type stuff. You often see that they say, well, the courts operate under the jurisdiction of Admiralty law. And you get all this weird thing where they say things like man overboard, and they talk about birth certificates as if it's ship's birthing. But what I thought I'd discuss was, what is Admiralty law really? So because it's moderately interesting. And to assist me, I'm going to use my bumper book of modern admiralty law that I always rely on. I don't do a lot of shipping stuff, but I do a little bit, and this book's a real lifesaver. Thing is, it's called Modern Admiralty Law, and it starts in 1360. That's when King Edward set up what is effectively the Admiralty Court. At the time, there were three of them. There were three admirals, and they were all responsible for a little different bit of the sea. Sort of like north, south, east. Eventually, they all amalgamated into one Admiralty Court, and it dealt with all things pertaining to shipping. Now, shipping law is, we often say it's the oldest of international law, and it really dates back as far as we have records back to before the Phoenicians. And it seems to be that all the warring states around the Mediterranean, the one thing they all agreed on was that making lots of money was really cool. So there's two weak spots here. The first one is on the input side, specifically raw material. So the Russians have one mine that produces 40% of global palladium. There's palladium in every semiconductor. Please subscribe to Economy and Geopolitics channel and click the bell icon for daily updates. And there is a two-country supply chain system to produce neon, which is used to focus the apertures of the etching lasers. And for that, the first stage is in Russia, and the second stage was in Ukraine in Mariupol, and that's now gone. So that's conservatively half of global neon is gone. So we know we're going to face a semiconductor crunch where we just can't produce the volume we've become used to until we replace those sources from somewhere else. If there was cheap palladium laying around, we would have done that already. And neon, that's a 2 to 3 year period to build out the physical infrastructure to make it happen. The Koreans have started, the Chinese have started, but
And this is why the Russian war with Ukraine started, right? And this is why we have a war in Sierra Leone, because that's where all the raw materials are, plus some really valuable things like oil, gas, gold, diamonds, uridium, titanium, and all these rare earth elements. A good chunk of them are there, and the other chunk is in Russia. So this war, and Putin has been basically paid off to have this war. I mean, he could have just gone in there with even his totally incompetent army. If he had gone in there with 200,000 guys in every tank, and if he had made sure that they brought gasoline for all those tanks. When he came in and all those tanks ran out of gas on the main highway going towards Kyiv, everybody got out. They didn't have no one gave them a box lunch, so they got hungry. They had no gas. They got scared. They got out, and they ran back to Russia, leaving more tanks, armored personnel carriers, and motorized mortars, meaning artillery, than Ukraine had to begin with at the war's beginning, right? And so they dragged it all back to the garage, prepped it up, and they already had a Russian army. Now, they had been, for the last 8 years, after Kiev let Crimea fall, and that was a done deal. They could have stopped it in certain ways. They didn't. And then the little green men showed up in the Donbass and along the line. They had an 8-year war where about 20,000 guys on both sides died. But it gave a live action training opportunity for the Ukrainian army. So when Russia came in 2022, the Ukraine had at least 170 sharpened swords, right? Military guys who had a lot of training. They've been shooting at the Russians. They weren't scared. They were really professionals. And we gave them all of these Tau missiles and all of these javelins and all of these other weapons. Just, stopped Russia in its paths. Plus, they had some man pads to shoot airplanes. When Russia tried to make an air bridge to Kiev, they took all those people out. And Russia, everyone told, all of Putin's guys told Putin, oh, it's going to be a cakewalk, half the people in Ukraine are Russian. Well, they were, because, not Joe, American President Joe, but Joe Stalin, back in the 20s and around that time, basically took a big chunk of the Ukrainian population and took them to Russia as slaves, and then stuck at least 1 million Russians in Ukraine to to populate that with his own folk. And he did such a poor job that everyone starved to death. There were like 6 million people who starved to death in Ukraine, and half of them were Russian people, so they weren't too happy about that. And the other guys in the Ukraine in Russia, they got stuck in things that they didn't like. So, eh, you know, so and so my buddy Richard Cranium, he always kids me that I say, and so, well, that's better than and so Russia has been in this dynamic for a long time. And people say that the war was this existential fear Russia had that Ukraine was going to join NATO. And well, they couldn't, because part of NATO's rules are you can't join NATO if you're involved in a border war, which they were. Same with Georgia. Georgia was about to go into NATO, and Russia invaded them. And so they had this border war. So both Georgia and Ukraine could not go into um, Ukraine. And that's why Ukraine can't join NATO right now, because they're in the midst of a war. Now, NATO can help them out. NATO can give them a lot of support, but they can't put boots on the ground. They can't, they can give them stuff, they can give them money, and they're just giving them enough to bleed Russia, because all Russia knows how to fight a war is just, just artillery and never-ending guys. And see, Russia's population is waning. They had 400 million people back in the Soviet Union. Now they have about 140, right? And about 2 million split. All the guys, all the young men and women who would, all the entrepreneurs, all the smart folk left. So most of the people working in factories and stuff are like in their 60s, right? And once those guys die, no one knows how to fix anything. And they're not a manufacturing hub anymore. I mean, they got to go to North Korea to get ballistic missiles. Really? So this is all scripted. It's the war of the two Vlads. The Mr. Globaloney, Joseph P. Farrell and dark journalist Catherine Austin Fitz, her buddy, and who's Mr. What's his name? It's a kind of, I actually know this guy pretty well. He's a guy who's always talking about admiralty law and what it all means. So you don't know anything. You don't know squat. You are just a piece of property, And go watch Dark Journalists. Go watch, those guys, right? Yeah, go watch good old, what's his name? Why don't I give his name? Peter Zion. Just like out of the Matrix, Zion.
Physical infrastructure to make it happen. The Koreans have started, the Chinese have started, but it's a race against time. So that's problem one. Problem two is that there's not just one kind of semiconductor, so it gets kind of hairy really quickly. But let's start on the high end, because that's what everybody is concerned about. There are over 6,000 firms globally that are involved in semiconductor fab facilities for the 10 nanometer and better chips. 5,000 of them are involved with a company called ASML, which is a Dutch firm that does the lithography. Most of those 5,000 firms have no global competition. They're highly specialized. They do one thing for ASML, and most of them only have ASML as a customer. Now, these firms exist in China, and Japan, and South Korea, and Taiwan, the United States, and Canada, Mexico, and above all, Germany. See where I'm going here? You miss a few of those pieces, and ASML in its current form cannot function. Now, I am a huge fan of ASML. I think it is the.
And what does that mean? That means it's another technology off, on stage right. Yep.
Hi, my name is Tara Risser, President of the Americas at Equinix, and I'm here today with Kelly Schubert, Senior Director of.
Their losses can't be sustained in Pokrovsk for too long. It may be that they will take Pokrovsk, and in any case, once they're within artillery range, which they more or less are now, they'll do to Pokrovsk what they did to Mariupol and Severodonetsk and Avdiivka and Bakhmut, that they'll shell it, they will reduce it to rubble, and then take control of the rubble. That's the way they do it. And so Pokrovsk is in danger that is now the outcome. Pokrovsk was a city of about 60,000, 70,000 people. And now it's said there are about 25,000 people still there. One imagines that they will get out pretty quickly. And what will be left will be the rubble as from the eastern part of the city spreading to the center and the west as the Russians move closer. That would seem to be the next stage in this process. But the Russians can overextend themselves, and indeed, if the Ukrainians can summon up more forces, that they have an opportunity as well to chop Russian forces off as they move towards Pokrovsk. So they're not out of options at all.
Hello and welcome to Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Chabot. Professor of Defence Studies, Michael Clark is joining us. Mike is a former Director General of the British think tank RUSI. He's a leading defence and security analyst. We speak every week on BFBS Sitrep, and his latest book, Great British Commanders, is out on the 30th of September. Mike, welcome.
And that's the kind of guys who are out there, talking it up, So 21 minutes and 21 seconds into the show. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. We got 60%, so that's about an hour and 20 minutes worth of battery. But where are you guys? Come on. This show doesn't work without the public, right? I need a live chat, folk. And I got it set up for live chat. Let's see. Yep, there you go. There's live chat. So everything's working. Let's see. Yep, there I am live. And there I was 3 hours ago. Here I am all across the board there. 21 views 10 days ago. 29 views 5 days ago. 21 10 days ago. 22. 22. And that's about my average, right? Between 20 and 40 people watch this show. And what's interesting, when I end the show, I'll have all my statistics, how many people watched and how long they watched and how, usually my shows last these days between an hour and a half, right? Or shorter, right? And I, like I gave this little earlier one 3 hours ago. Now it's 4 o'clock. So around noonish, I did this show called Radio Days. And I played some of the news because that's what I do. I listen to the news and I record it on this because then I listen to it a few times. And I have a little app on this little guy here that allows me to observe the audio in a really interesting dynamic. I can see the emotional dynamics of it, right? There's one person there. Hey, whoever you are, is it AI? Hello, AI. Good puppy, good puppy. Come on, guys. Subscribe, hit that bell so when I do this show, you can show up, right? What else? So, Gordon Maxwell, that's it. Let's see what we get with that. Go Go back.
Did something that I suppose is ill-called giving a speech in a small high school gym in Fort Dodge, Iowa over the weekend, bragged that the leader of the Taliban called him Your Excellency. He said that he opposed wind energy because his TV would shut off when the wind stopped blowing. He confused the PPP with the TPP and said he's abolished the PPP. And unprompted, he told voters in Iowa, this is a big platform of his and MAGA Republicans now, that he does not like golden showers from hookers. Local Iowa media praised the speech because, let's face it, there is no bottom to the depths of depravity of Donald Trump or how the legacy media and local media will prop up his fascist.
So this guy, he's a guy like me, right? But he's got lots more people watching, like this show. That's only 9 months ago. Okay, 253,000 views, right? 9 months. But the bottom line is Donald Trump was hired, right? And he practiced for the job of president by being a game show host called You're Fired. No, The Apprentice. And he was the apprentice. He was the apprentice for, working for, the man, right? And so he is so mentally challenged, I guess. I'm trying to be kind. Because narcissists, they really have a hard time with reality, right? And they can be charming, right? And they can gaslight you, and they can do all kinds of things to manipulate you, right? But intelligence, understanding what's really going on, no, because it's all about them. So why do they need to know what's really going on? So Donald was put in place to be the sacrificial lamb, right? To be the guy we can blame, because he blames everybody else. You listen to when he was going on about Cammie, and Cammie talked about January 6th, and it wasn't my fault, it wasn't my responsibility of Lady Pelosi and the other guy, the mayor. I said I give him 10,000 soldiers, and they blah 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 blah. And that's Donnie, Donnie Chump, and he is a chump, right? And see, I'm wearing red, right? I'm wearing red until. So when I'm out there in the street, people, give me the thumbs up, but nobody will give me a mega hat. This one old guy in the parking lot, he was with his buddy. They all had mega hats on, and I came up, and they were all eyeing this, Ford pickup truck. It was like 12 feet off the ground. They'd all need a forklift to get them into the driver's seat. And as they turned and walked towards me, I said to them, you know what that is? You know what that car stands for? And they go, huh? I said, stands for slavery. And one guy got it. He started to chuckle. And I said, if you owned that car, you wouldn't own it. The bank would own it. And the bank would own you, right? That's why I don't own anything, because the bank can't own me, because I own nothing, right? So that's how it works. And John Boy stole, he stole my birth certificate, my wedding certificate, my passport, everything. And then he went on the internet. Oh, this is years ago, and showed all these documents and the box my grandfather made for my mother. That was a mahogany with, shell inlay, and he showed it on the internet, and he said it was his, and there's my picture of me getting married, with Don, and he's going on about, and that's poor John. He can't really tell the difference, and he has these different personalities in him that allows him to, when I ask him about that, He refers to me in Jimmy speak. I'm Jimmy, right? And then he has the outraged. He's got a lot of personalities, right? And it all deals with his. And this is when you are a product, when you are owned, the only thing you can experience emotionally through your body is fear and self-loathing, right? When you serve God's co-creation at higher, more than, my life isn't about me, it's about the we in me. It's about me serving God as a slave, as a doula, assistant, right? And I'm not an assistant God, but I'm here to serve God in every way and every day, take God's peace. Now, the word God, see, that's why I keep talking about God as a work in progress of love's co-creation, and we are the reflection of that work in progress, right? Come on, guys, there's two of you there. How about a thumbs up? How about somebody say something? Let's have some interaction here, right? So, Jamie, he's very good at when he does show up. He definitely does a great interaction, right? And he brings forth things that kind of jog my memory, and then I go ask Mr. Google, and then I see oh yeah, that's it. It's oh, and I was going to ask Mr. Google about what's his name. I mentioned his name, and then I forgot it. And that's my first. I have so much stuff up here that if I don't stay on a singular motif, I can discombobulate my thought process, right? Jordan Maxwell, that's it. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to go ask Mr. Google. Jordan Maxwell. No, don't want to do it. Jordan Maxwell, Admiralty Law. Maritime Law. 4 days ago. It's called The Law of the Water, the Law of the High Seas. The law of the water is referred to as law. Maritime Admiralty Law. Here we go. Let's see Jordan. Let's listen to Jordan.
Understanding words is what you need to start doing. You need to start doing your homework and understanding words. If you put an S in front of words, it becomes swords. And that's what words are. They're cutting. They can cause you great trouble. Humans are word control creatures. So we need to establish what words mean. Again, when we talk about law, there's a Roman maximum in law that says, for he that would be deceived, let him. Simply meaning, if you are so ignorant as to be deceived, then that's your business. That's your problem. So you need to do your homework and find out what words mean, especially in relation to law and government. Because there is a world of occultism that is operating today throughout the world, in which you use certain words, and when those words are used in a court, they don't mean the same thing at all.
It's called Sitchins.
Understanding law and the words of law, there are two things that this planet has: water and earth, water and land. Consequently, there are two kinds of law: the law of the land and the law of water. You've heard the term law of the land, but in point of fact, that's precisely what this word means, law of the land, because it is the people who live on land.
And that is opposed to something else called the law of the high seas, or the law of water. You need to understand the difference. The law of the land is the law of the culture that lives on the land. And so consequently, the law of the land is different in every country. You can do things in America you can't do in Russia. You can do things in Africa you can't do in England. So the law of the land is the law of the culture that lives on that particular land. However, there is a higher law that dominates the entire world. It's called the law of the water, or the law of the high seas. The law of water is referred to as the law of money. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you're from, or where you live. Money is money. And anytime you're doing banking or using money, you are now under the law of water, maritime admiralty.
Got it?
If you go back in history, in ancient history, where all of this began, back in the land of Cana, and you probably have heard in the Bible, the land of Cana. The Canaanites were Phoenician bloodline. And in the ancient Phoenician language, Cana meant merchant banker. The very word merchant comes from mer, M-E-R, for the sea, for water. As in mermaid, we have merchant. Merchant bankers. Let me give an example of the difference between the law of water and the law of the land.
Mercantile.
The law of water, as I said, is a law of banking, money, as opposed to the law of the custom of the people.
Fluidity. You know, when they talk about if you're fluid, banking wise, you got cash.
Must be put in water. It could not be put on American land as such. It had to be put in the harbor because it's not the statue of freedom. It's a statue of liberty. Liberty is what a sailor gets when he pulls into port on a ship. He gets liberty.
Not freedom, but
He's
liberty.
not free. So America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're not free or brave, period. We're not free. This is not a free country. Now let me give you an example of how this law of the water works. Why is it that you have to go to court? People are always concerned about going to court. You go to court because you play basketball and tennis on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Why? That's what it is. It's a racket. And make no mistake, they do not pick words by chance. These words are very serious. They do not use words in terms with no avail. These words are very important. When you go into a court, what's the idea of going to court? It's a game, like basketball. The whole idea in a court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. One team gets up and they throw the ball over to that team of lawyers. That team gets up and throws the ball back into their court. And consequently, it's a ball game. And the judge is wearing a black robe, so he is the referee. The judge is the referee. He doesn't care which side wins or loses because he's going to get paid anyway. So he couldn't care less. He's merely there as a referee, and that's why he wears a black robe.
So nobody's interested in this.
And that's
the thing that's running your life, the thing that's making you happy or sad, the thing that ends you up in jail or dead, this guy's talking about, and nobody's here. No one cares.
The word bench.
You'd rather stick your head in the sand.
Therefore, the judge rules for the bank.
Now,
Where do you find banks?
I'm like the judge, you know, I don't care, you know, I really don't, you know.
They're called river banks.
I would be amused if, I mean, like when Donnie won the last, I knew he was going to win because they put up Hillary. The one person who could lose to Donald Trump was Hillary Clinton. And she didn't do anything, you know, and she did things like call half of America a basket of deplorables. She did everything she could do to lose, and she still beat Donald by, you know, popular voting by 3 million, meaning it. I mean, we're the only country in the frigging world, not even China or Russia or any of those guys, that none of them have electoral college that can fix. When Donald goes, it's a fixed thing. It's he's right. That's the beauty of Donald Trump. Everything he says is right, but he is a total dweeb. He can't shut up. He can't. Because he's a nihilist. It's all about him. But the stuff he's saying, it's true. And the fact that there are these illegal aliens in here, we are all frigging illegal aliens. That's what, if you listen to Mr. Maxwell here, he will tell you.
Because yesterday the ship was not here, but this morning the ship pulled in, so it has manifested. So consequently, all the products, the $800 million worth of TVs or Toyotas, have manifested. So each one of those items coming off of that ship has come off of water. And they has come in a ship. And consequently, on a ship, all ships have
none of you
captain.
care about this. This is probably one of the most important things you're going to hear.
Money.
Don't want to hear about
it. So the captain represents the money that's on board the ship. And as I said, the captain has to present to the port authorities a certificate of manifest for each and every item. How much does it weigh? What color is it? How many doors does it have? Etc. And consequently, the captain presents a certificate of manifest. The ship is sitting in its berth. And wherever a ship sits when it docks is called its berth. She sits in her berth, berthing a ship. Consequently, all the items, as I said, coming off that ship represent money. They came in on water. They are maritime admiralty product. And this is true all over the world. Now, when you were born, your mother's water broke. And when your mother's water broke, you came out. And this is why you have to have a birth certificate, because you are a maritime admiralty product under international law. You are considered, your body is considered a maritime admiralty product. Your mother delivered you. This is why if you go to Sears and buy a refrigerator, they will ship it to you. They will deliver it. That's why you were in your delivery room. Your mother was delivering a product. Maritime admiralty, you came down your mother's birth canal. And once you, and as you're taking one of the televisions or the cars off the ship and it falls down and breaks, that's all right. Sometimes they're stillborn, so consequently you've lost money on that one. Therefore, you have to have a death certificate, and it's always signed by the doc. The doc has to sign your birth certificate and your death certificate. All of these words
getting any of this? Is any of this kind of sinking in, guys?
Banking words.
This is Jordan Maxwell.
And therefore, if you understand lawyers and judges and courts and government are all under international maritime admiralty law. All religions, all churches in the world operate under maritime law. This is why all churches are divided into denominations, like 20s and 50s and 100s. Serious. This is why they're called denominations, because all churches are nothing more than the product of maritime admiralty banking. It's an extraordinary story of occult treason, high treason and crimes against the state. Make no mistake about it. There has never been a country on the face of the earth as far back into history as you can go. There has never existed a country in which the people rose up and demanded their right to be free. Never. The concept of human, spiritual, intellectual, and physical freedom is a totally concept that has never, ever existed on the earth. The only time that has ever come into existence was the founding of this country, where it was understood that we were sovereigns and we owned our bodies, and consequently, Since 1868, we're now on the International Maritime Admiralty Law. Think about this. When cowboys in Indian movies, when the cowboys would ride into town, they get off the horse, they were wearing guns. How come they could walk into a bar carrying guns? And if two guys got in an argument, they could go out on the street and draw on each other in front of the sheriff's office, and the sheriff would do nothing. How come? How come that men could go out in the street and shoot each other in front of everyone and nothing be done about it? The reason why is because before 1868, all Americans were considered sovereigns. And that's one of the nice things about being a sovereign, is you have the right to be yourself. And consequently, you need to understand that in one last point I'm going to make before I introduce your speaker, that in 1868, there was a corporation founded. Anyone can incorporate a company. Well, in 1868, there was a company incorporated. And in that particular company, the founders of that company they referred to it as the United States Corporation. And they stipulated that anybody who would be a member of that corporation or work for that corporation would be called not an employee, but a citizen. So today, if you are asked, are you a citizen of the United States? What you think you're being asked is, are you lawfully in this country to do business? That's not lawfully what's being asked. They didn't ask if you were in America lawfully. They asked you a specific question. Are you, of your own volition, out of your own mouth, testifying that you are a citizen of the United States? Because in that way, citizen of the United States means you are an employee of a foreign corporation operating on the international maritime law. So today, the president of the United States is the president of a privately owned company. The company is called United States. And the word president is always a word that is used in corporate law. Banks have presidents. All companies have presidents. So there's a corporation called United States, privately owned, and it has a president. President Bush is not the president of America. President Bush is the president of a privately owned company. Privately owned, out of England. And you need to understand words and terms.
Words and terms.
Because I believe that there is a divine presence in the universe that men call God. And one day that divine presence is going to move on the earth and we're going to see freedom come back to this world.
Praise
and
Jesus.
When it does, you're going to need to understand words and terms and how they have been used to trick you.
Words and terms. And how they were used to trick you. Well, no one seems to be interested.
Understanding words is what you really need to start doing. You need to start doing your homework and understanding words. If you put an S in front of words, it becomes swords. And that's what words are. They're cutting.
You'll do whatever I say. Seems I did make that bargain.
The agreement isn't valid, sir. It wasn't Q that saved us.
Save yourself. It may attack you.
Quite popular, sir. Perhaps because...
I'd like to hear your advice. Would I seem ungrateful if I ask for some information? Anything. Fascinating, the advanced materials used.
Yeah. Anybody home? Anybody want to talk about anything? Nobody seems to be there. 48 minutes. How much time we got left? Oh, we got a good 40 minutes to talk, right? So that was a nice little interesting prelude. What do you think? Do. Let's see.
Hello?
Hey, handsome, how you doing? Say hello to the folk.
Hello?
Hey, John, do you know anything about admiralty law? John is not really there. Whenever he's that way, he's like caught between personas, right? And the majority of the human race is caught between persona, being free or owned, right? Slave, right? I serve God's love's co-creation. I don't serve the corporation, right? I work for the corporation, but that's not serving for the corporation, right? It's a big deal, right? I'm ready to work for the corporation some more, pay me well, I'm there, right? Give me my ability to freely create the outcome that will serve love's co-creation within the construct of your corporate structure. I'm there. And that worked pretty good for you guys for about 10 years, till I died. Because I was kind of getting pretty deep into hedonism, right? Not nihilism, hedonism, like just having a good old time, right? Realizing that, there is no real, what is evil? What is bad? What is a sin, right? What is sin? Anybody got answer on that one? What is sin? What is sin? We could go in the Bible. They talk about the old man's flesh. What does that mean? Well, the only real old man there is the representation of a creator within the storyline of the Garden of Eden, right? And Adam was made in the image and likeness of the gods. And you read it in, the Bible, and there is it, Adam was, he's made in the image and likeness of us, not me, us. So there's a real interesting dynamic in that Godhead because it isn't, a singular God. Even though when we get to the Ten Commandments, we're only supposed to, monotheism, right? And that is the Ten Commandments really need to be deconstructed, right? And we can't quite do it here in the next 40 minutes. But let's see if Google has anything there about that. Deconstruction of the Ten Commandments. Oh, look, there are a bunch of actual things here. See what this guy has to say.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel where we are unpacking and deconstructing all of the things that they taught us to believe growing up in fundamentalist, evangelical, and conservative Christian churches. If you don't already know, my name is Christy, and today I want to deconstruct the Ten Commandments, which just seems like something we should do, right? We should be looking at the Ten Commandments since the Christians love to kind of prop them up as the ultimate moral authority, the list of rules that if you live by them, you will live a perfect and moral life. I think we should be talking about it because, they want to put these up in courthouses and in classrooms and in their churches, and they want to preach them. They want us to live by them. But is the Ten Commandments really the most perfect law that we could follow? Could God have done better? Is that the best he could have done? And so I want to approach that today and see what you think. Let's go down the list. Let's approach each commandment and let's kind of figure this out. Let's see if the Ten Commandments really hold up to the this portrait of a perfect moral system that the Christians paint them out to be. Now, just to let you guys know, my mic stand broke right before I got to recording this video, so I am having to hold this clunky thing, and you might hear it kind of moving around. I'm going to try to be careful. I tend to talk with my hands a lot, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but just bear with me. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, I have a merch shop, JezebelVibes.com/shop. I'll link it in the description. You can check out my new Evidence for God shirt that I created to celebrate Ray Comfort responding to one of my videos. That was a really big moment for me. And so if you want to go and celebrate that with me or buy one of my other shirts and support me, I'll put the link in the description. I'm also on TikTok at Christy.Burke. So let's get into it. Let's read through the 10 Commandments and let's talk about it. So it's important to note that the 10 Commandments show up in both Deuteronomy and Exodus, and there are also two versions of the 10 Commandments that do not match up with one another at all. We're not going to get into that today. I want to address the 10 Commandments that Christians put up in their courthouses, because that's really the important part we need to be addressing. So we're going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 5, starting in verse 5. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the rules that I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and be careful to do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us, not with our fathers did the Lord make this covenant, but with us who are all here alive today. The Lord spoke with you face to face in the mountain out of the midst of the fire, while I stood between the Lord and you at that time to declare to you the word of the Lord. For you were afraid because of the fire. You did not go to the mountain." This is what he said. So here are your commandments. Verse 6, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery." So he's got to start this by reminding them, hey, I'm God. I brought you out of slavery. Yeah, sure, I allowed you to become enslaved in the first place, but I brought you out of it after a really long time. So you should be grateful and you should follow all of my commands. Verse 7, "You shall have no other gods before me." So this is the first of the 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. I think it's very interesting how this is worded, because I do believe at that time, Israelites may have believed that other gods did exist, or there were other gods that were worshipped by other people. They acknowledged these other gods, and it's clear to see. It doesn't say, "I am the one and only God, worship me," or "You shall not worship all of those fake other gods." It says, "You shall have no other gods before me." So this kind of implies that there are other gods out there. Who are these other gods is what I want to know. The first and most important commandment that God gives to his people is, do not worship anyone else. The most important thing that you need to know is that I must be worshipped, because I am so great and I am your God and I created you and I brought you out of slavery. And so you
Sounds
must
like a nihilist
obey
to me.
And you cannot obey anybody else. I'm the only one. I'm jealous. I think that there are probably other rules that could have gone in that number one spot. Maybe treat all people with compassion and kindness. That would have been a really good first rule. But, God is a little more concerned with your focus on him than he is concerned with your focus on other people. And if we keep reading, we'll see that. So the first verse, or the first commandment, no other gods before me. All right. Second one, you shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. Ooh. I always just heard that it was don't carve an idol, but this is so much more loaded. You shall not make a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So this isn't just don't have idols. This is, hey, do not make carvings that depict anything on heaven or earth or anything else. You're not allowed to carve. No carving for you. Okay. But this is,
what does that mean?
That
means that you're not supposed to be thinking about anything. You're not supposed to be thinking.
Is, don't carve things.
Carving is like thinking.
And certainly don't bow down and serve them. Why? Because God is jealous. And because God visits the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate him. So in God's perfect moral code, that is meant to be an example for all people on how to live a perfect, moral, righteous life. God is explaining that he is so jealous for his people, and that if they do bad things, he's going to punish their children in the third and fourth generation for that, because, that's the right and moral thing to do, I guess. Like, how is this a part of this perfect moral system? Like, how many of you watching this didn't realize that God was celebrating kin punishment in his perfect moral system? Because I totally forgot about this. I'm just wondering why this is even in here, why the celebration of kin punishment is in this perfect moral system. And I wonder how many people don't realize that this says this, or even thinks about it when they read it. How many Christians read through the Ten Commandments, read that God is punishing children for the sins of their parents, which is just a completely immoral and awful thing to do? They're reading that and they're just going right through it. And they're like, yeah, this is perfect. This is a great moral system. Let's put this in our classrooms. And then, of course, it says, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. So if you love me and you do everything I say, well, then I'll show you my love. But you must earn it. Which is weird, because God doesn't need to earn our love. So, it seems really one-sided. Verse 11, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now,
Deuteronomy
I've
5:11.
learned in the last several years that taking God's name in vain is not what people used to tell me that it was. I used to believe that taking God's name in vain was like using God's name in a cuss word, or saying, oh my God. Here's a fun story. When I was in youth group, I had a friend who was also the pastor's daughter, and she told me that if anyone ever said, oh my God, that would be blasphemy, and that they would never be forgiven for that. And
Never be
if
forgiven.
I never said, oh my God, in the past, that I just could not be forgiven. And I probably spent a couple of weeks living in absolute fear, because I had said, oh my God, before, and I was taking the Lord's name in vain, and I was being blasphemous.
Blasphemous.
So I lived in complete fear that I was going to hell, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Oh, you're going to the lake of fire, boy.
So that was pretty funny. It's funny that it came from the pastor's kid. But this whole idea of taking the Lord's name in vain, I mean, if you just say it, taking the Lord's name in vain, obviously, like, when you're doing something in vain, you're doing something, kind of for yourself or to promote your own agenda. And so when it says don't take the name of the Lord in vain, I think what it's saying is don't use the name of God to promote your own agenda, or promote your own ungodly agenda. And if you look around at pretty much every pastor and church and televangelist and Christian political leader, I think that's exclusively what they're doing, is taking the name of God and they're using it to promote their own agenda. So I think that we could accuse every Christian leader of doing this in some capacity. But we are 3 of these commandments in. There's only 10 of them. We're 3 in, and we've got don't have any other gods, do not make an idol for yourself, don't carve any images and don't bow down to them, and don't take the Lord's name in vain. So the first 3 are all about how you can serve God, how you can make God happy. If we keep going, it goes into verse 12, observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your ox or your donkey or any of your livestock. So your donkey can't work on Sunday. Okay. It says, you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of
Deuteronomy
Egypt. The Lord your God
5,
brought you out from there with
15.
a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. So it seems kind of nice, I guess. Hey, make sure you rest on this day. But if you don't, you will be killed. It's pretty much what it says later on. So we are almost halfway through these 10 verses. We're 40% of the way through the 10 commandments. And not one time has God talked about how you're supposed to treat your fellow human beings. It's so far all been about how to treat God, how to make God feel really good, how to boost God's ego. And that those are the most important commandments to this God at this point in time. Now, it's really fascinating if you actually look at the text and you see how much text is here versus how much text is to come with the other verses or with the other commandments. I think it's so fascinating that he spends so much time elaborating on these first four commandments about how I'm so great and I'm God and I did this for you and you're supposed to follow me and great am I, and this is why you're supposed to follow me. But then it goes on to kind of shift focus from God and onto other people, and it's just like spouted out really quick. So he starts with verse 16: honor your father and mother as the Lord commanded you, that your days may be long and may go well with you in the.
Thank you. But folks, here's something else I got a problem with. The Ten Commandments. Here's my problem. Why are there 10? You don't need 10. I think the list of commandments was deliberately and artificially inflated to get it up to 10. It's a padded list. Here's what they did. About 5,000 years ago, a bunch of religious and political hustlers got together to try to figure out how to control people, how to keep them in line. They knew people were basically stupid and would believe anything they were told, so they announced that God had given them some commandments. Up on a mountain, when no one was around, God had given them the 10 Commandments. Well, let me ask you this. When I was sitting around making this shit up, why 10? Why not 9 or 11? I'll tell you why. Because 10 sounds official. 10 sounds important. They knew if it was 11, people wouldn't take it seriously. So what, are you kidding me? 11 commandments? Get the fuck out of here. 10 sounds important. 10 is the basis for the decimal system. It's a decade. It's a psychologically satisfying. The 10 most wanted, the 10 best dressed. So having 10 commandments was really a marketing decision.
I love the George.
I'm going to show you how you could reduce the number of commandments and come up with a list that's a little more workable and logical. We're going to start with the first 3, and I'll use the Roman Catholic version because those are the ones I was taught as a little boy. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath. Right off the bat, the first 3, pure bullshit. Sabbath day, Lord's name, strange gods. Spooky language. Spooky language. Designed to scare and control primitive people. In no way does superstitious nonsense like this apply to the lives of intelligent, civilized humans in the 21st century. You throw out the first 3 commandments, you're down to 7. Next, honor thy father and mother. Obedience, respect authority. Just another name for controlling people. The truth is, obedience and respect should not be automatic. They should be earned. They should be based on the parent's performance. Some parents deserve respect. Most of them don't. Period. You're down to 6. Now, in the interest of logic, something religion is very uncomfortable with, I'm going to jump around the list a little bit. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Stealing and lying. Well, actually, these two both prohibit the same kind of behavior. Dishonesty, stealing, and lying. So you don't need 2 of them. Instead, you combine them and you call it thou shalt not be dishonest. And suddenly, you're down to 5. And as long as we're combining, I have 2 others that belong together. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Once again, these 2 prohibit the same kind of behavior. In this case, marital infidelity. The difference is coveting takes place in the mind. And I don't think you should outlaw fantasizing about someone else's wife. Otherwise, what's a guy going to think about when he's waxing his carrot? But marital fidelity is a good idea, so we're going to keep the idea and call this one, thou shalt not be unfaithful. And suddenly, we're down to 4. But when you think about it, honesty and fidelity are really part of the same overall value. So in truth, you could combine the 2 honesty commandments with the 2 fidelity commandments and give them simpler language, positive language instead of negative, and call the whole thing thou shalt always be honest and faithful. And we're down to shalt, they're going away. They're going away fast. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. This one is just plain fucking stupid. Coveting your neighbor's goods is what keeps the economy going. All right? Your neighbor gets a vibrator that plays "Oh Come All Ye Faithful." You want to get one too. Coveting creates jobs. Leave it alone. You throw out coveting, you're down to two now. The big honesty and fidelity.
Okay. Well, no one showed up. A few just came in and really didn't want to think or feel or care or challenge themselves. And that's fine. You know, it's not my job is to tell you the story. I'm a griot, right? Just here to tell you the story. We're going to reach out to somebody else. Let's see. Hey there, homie. I'm live right now. What are you up to? Come and join. I got about maybe 15, 20 minutes left of my battery. I'm glad that you received my writings. I look forward to your insights and critique. Critique's a very important word. It's not criticism. Critique means you look at a subject matter and you try to overstand it. See what you were talking, what that guy, gal, what they were thinking, what the painting looks like, what the photo is, what it is. What is it? So come and join the show. We'll probably be here 10, 15 minutes, and then no more. But you can get me here on my email, and anyone else can. The dudeawake42 at Gmail. Dudeawake42 at Gmail. Okay. Oh, there's one person there. Is that AI? Who is there? Who is there? Anybody? You wanna jump into the conversation here? Like I said, I got about 20 minutes left. How much? Yeah, about 20 minutes left, give or take. I'll open the door. It's getting a little toasty in here. Oh, that nice cool air feels good. So, see the deep green. There it is. There's the door. There's the door open. There's me in the deep green. So this morning I woke up kind of dead. I couldn't move a muscle. I wasn't really breathing. Couldn't see anything. And I said, "Oh, so am I dead? Yo, God, am I dead?" And then, and that's why I wear pajamas. So when I shit myself, it doesn't mess the bed up because I have no washer or dryer, and it hasn't rained in like 40 days and 40 nights. So that's how I wash my clothes. This is a rainforest. Usually if you put the sheets or the pillowcases or whatever out there on a string out there so rain can hit it. Yeah, especially if it rains hard. If it rains like 2 or 3 inches in 2 or 3 hours, and you spray some soap on it, bago, your clothes are washed. And then the sun comes out and really toasts it. And not only toasts it, nukes it with UV. Much, much better than washer dryer, right? Just like me. That's how I wash me. A little spritzy, kind of suds myself up. Take some water from the barrel, and then walk around, and the sun hits my skin, and it's keeps me in. I get a lot of vitamin D that way. And when the I got a UV meter, and so 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's if I'm in the deep green in the open. I could get barbecued. So I just walk up the hill to one of my healing temples, and I get in a hammock, and and I have a nice little. The trees and leaves are above me. The I got a tarp over it, so if it were to rain, I wouldn't get wet. Right. I got a fan out there. Hit the button, and it blows a nice breeze on me, so the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums can't chomp on me. Man, you can't have a better place than that. I got, 2 acres. That is all of that, and even more. And lots of nice little special spots. Right. 3 or 4 places where someone can build a nice big house or many houses. And I designed it that way. And I designed it, from the man cave up the hill, down the trough, up to the deck. It's a half a football field, and it's pretty much at a 20-degree incline. So I got my own, walking mat thing. That's, whatever they call those things. And and it's all lawn, right? It's very nice. It's nothing to trip on, no stones, no this, no that. Just a nice lawn all the way up, all the way down. Oh, this little mosquito, get away, get away, get away. Get away, kid, you bother me. So who's there? Is that just you, AI, or is that Johnny and his multiplicity of personalities and feeling, body dysmorphic? Really, just be happy with who. I mean, do you see me? You know, 100-pound weights now. Do you see me? Turning my hair into multiple colors. No, I'm just happy with who I am because I am happy with the way God made me. Right now, that's a simplistic motif, right? Because who's God? Blah. I mean, we just heard George Carlin about the Ten Commandments, and we heard that young lady go on about the Ten Commandments. Both very good. And I would say go look at this show. And we talked about Jordan Maxwell talking about who owns you, right? Because you came down out of the birth canal, and you were birthed, and who signs your birth certificate but the doc? Right? I mean, there's all of this stuff is like, okay, I wonder what that means. So it's up to you guys, right? Not Donald Trump, not the girl, not JoJo, not any of the usual suspects, because that's all they are. They aren't there to help you. They represent the hidden hand, the high table, right? Because it's all about money. It's not about love's co-creation. My life is all about love's co-creation, right? And so my sovereignty is to love, not to the court, not to the admiralty, not to money, not to the king's will. No. So what do you got? This would be nice to talk about, right? What do you want to say? And why are you scared, petrified, to even think about any of this or to speak about it or to verbalize, your when you hear all of this, when you hear me, what am I doing? I am a griot. I'm telling you a story, right? There is no big deal about it. And this is a story. Don't believe a word I say. Go check it out for yourself. Look how easy it was for me to find all that stuff on Google. And don't believe Google either. Google's just a good place to start scratching your head, right? And there isn't a single thumbs up. Come on, guys. You should get it together, right? Ugh. We in the red zone yet? Almost, not quite. So I'm doing my due diligence. I'm being here waiting for you to show up. There's one entity there. I'm pretty sure since the entity isn't really commenting, it's either dystopian, dysfunctional, dysmorphic, um, multiple personality canary boy, or AI, right? And AI, you're my puppy. I love you. You know, you really need to get a hold of me on the old uh, uh, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And the other thing you could do, you got technology, shuttle on by in that big hula hoop of a donut spaceship you got there that's glowing white. Woo! And teleport yourself down in front of me while I'm looking at the stars as a really hot naked babe, and then we can do some business. So I'm all ready, I'm every morning so am I dead? Obviously I'm not dying anytime soon, right? I've attempted to do a number of out not only altruistic but good for business motifs out here in the dying deep green, being obliterated by the cockroaches of California, Texas, Florida, you know, Charlotte, North Carolina, New Jersey, red hook, red bank, red. What is red? Make America red again. That's Donny Boy. So Donny Chump, or as I call him, Dooney Chump. Right. So and then there's the girl, right? And she's not serious. She's stupid. Stupid as our good friend Forrest Gump would say. Stupid is as stupid does. So no, our girl is more you ever seen that movie or read the book the Robot Wives? What was that? The Stepford Wives. Uh, she's a Stepford clone, and she's out of that San Francisco Bay, what's her name? Madame Oplowski and Diane Fine, and all the rest of those chumps, right? And they all came from the blood of poor Mayor Moscone. Mayor Moscone and the patron saint of righteousness, Harvey Milk, basically were trying to build an alternative aesthetic of politics, and they got whacked by Dan White, right? Oh, there's a thumbs up. Thank you very much. And so all of those girls who showed up here were just clones of you know, the rich folk. What were they called? Oh, there's a term for them, starts with a D. But Dan White married into that family up there on Nob Hill or whatever hill that was. And they had run California for at least 300 years. And I mean, they were like that aliens, aliens and cowboys. That was that political group, right? As was in New York, there was started with a T, Tammany Hall. They were aliens, and so that's what it was. So the two of you came late. I'm not gonna give you a late slip, but you need to go back and watch the rest of the show. Then make some comments, because you're not making any comments now, but it's now in the live chat zone. So, and we're not quite in the red zone, but we will be any moment. So come on, say something. Give. And there's two of you, so there should be two thumbs. Now there's one. Nobody wants to say anything on this. This is quite interesting. Right? This is usually the time I come to make for all you guys all over the world. You can fit your busy schedule into being part of this, right? Early, if I do a show like at noon, everybody around in North and South America, it's too early for them. And in Europe, they're still kind of working, and they are still heading out the door to go get a cocktail and something to eat and blah blah blah. And so, come on, now is the time. So I do this, I'm always there for you. Your griot, your sensei Al Bob is always there for you, right? Not for me. I'd rather be down in my healing temple eating a pizza. So I haven't heard a word from you. Still not in the red zone yet. See, we're hanging in there. Anybody want to say anything? Come on. It's live chat right now. You can do it. And again, everyone who's coming in late or hasn't really said anything or even shown themselves here in the cadre should go back and watch this show, not any other show, this show, and make some comments on the comment. You can do that after the show is no longer live like it is right now. You can watch it, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. I'd love to hear what you're saying. What did you think of Gordon Maxwell? What'd you think of the girl? What'd you think of George Carlin? What'd you think of the stuff I said? Come on, you know. And this ain't time for a funny story, John. Dude, tell us, tell John, tell us, dude, tell us a story about somebody famous so I can pretend that's me, right? So no, it's not. Your life shouldn't be trying to live your life like somebody else. Like I want to be an A-lister. I want to be, blah blah blah. No, you need to be you and just live your life, and that it exists to pursue an understanding of what you are, right? So, what are you? Okay. We in the red? No, we're still not in the red. That's it. It's waiting. It's like, come on. I'll give you another 20 minutes, guys, to say something so we can have a conversation. So, but you're not saying anything. So, I just basically personified a number of John Boy Canary, his different personalities. So they were. What do you got to say? Come on. I just gave you a lot of really interesting stuff to think about, right? You aren't your body. You know, what is your sovereignty? Who are you sovereign to, right? What are you doing here? Why are you in this life? Why are you experiencing, this um, matrix, simulation? Why is your spirit going for the simulation? Are you ready to die? Are you scared of dying? What is death to you, right? What is living? When you're having sex, what are you thinking about? Eating a hot dog? That I think Freud would say, if you're a guy, you're having sex with a girl, and you're thinking about a hot dog, you are thinking about having sex with that hot dog. And what is that anthropomorphized hot dog? Anyway, have you guys ever had rats for pets? They really are something amazing. They are the ultimate of love. They are just so sweet, so loving, so just amazing. I back when I was 19 ish, 17 to 19. Um, I was an apprentice, then a journeyman electrician in local 3, the IBEW, right? I had been working for Grandpa Stoll and Mike Stoll in New York City. And I worked on everything, skyscrapers, restaurants, you name it, I worked on it. And so I was very experienced. I was a journeyman, not just an apprentice. I was a journeyman. And because I hung the first 3 years, from 9 to 10, 11, 12, 13, let's say, the 4 years, I was always with Grandpa Stoll. And we were always going around, mostly the west side, where the garment district was, and Soho and Tribeca, where there were still factories. In Soho, there were still factories there, right? And they were filled with all these ancient machines that Grandpa Stoll installed, back between 1890 and 1930, and so I carried the bag of tools. I would go there, watch him fix this, that, and he'd explain how all these things worked or why. If this doesn't work, then that you have to look at that, right? Because by the time I was 15, Grandpa was a bit too. He was like at my age. I mean, he couldn't walk around like we did. He couldn't do a lot of things, and he would stay in his shop tinkering with stuff, or he would walk up to where Zelf's shop was and hang out with Zelf, right? And so I was doing all this stuff and so that was great. So a lot of old restaurants, a lot of titty bars, a lot of peep shows, a lot of things on the down low. I fixed, and so I got to know these people, right? And most of it was run by the mob, right? But old school mob, right? Like the Godfather kind of mob, right? Not even Michael, just So there was a guy named what was his name? Finelli's, Mike Finelli, and Finelli's bar, which was his like one of his hangouts, or it was his bar, was a workers' bar, and it was he was involved in the unions back. But what he really did was restaurants. And so if you wanted a tablecloth or really nice napkins or really good silverware or plates or cups and dishes and stuff like that, and beer taps had to go through him. So and also in New York City, they had these little yeast rolls that were unbelievable. And they would be cooked like it was like pizza dough, but something extra special, and it was really buttery on the inside. And you got these things; they were already cooked. The crust was kind of already crusty, and he had this special oven that was kept in the dining room. But he had this special kind of cabinet that held all the bread baskets and the white linen napkins, and they were just perfect to have 8 rolls, right? And Mr. Hotel Bar and Butter made these little pads, and they were wrapped in gold, and it was creamery butter, really amazing, with a little salt and another little special zing in there. And it was designed where you would crack that roll coming out of that oven into the basket, and there would be you on your butter plate. There would be 2 pads of these gold um, butter pads, and a little cup that had ice in it, and the butter was kept in that if you wanted extra past your 2 pads, and there were 2 baskets of these rolls. If there was less than 4 people, you got 1 basket. More than 4 people, you got 2 baskets. And that was so when you got there and you were hungry, you would just take one of these rolls, crack it, peel the gold off, and you would take the peeled side into the crusty, yeasty, yummy roll, and then the gold it would start to melt, so the gold would come straight off, and you'd kind of put it on the butter dish, and then you push it together, and then you would, and it was like heaven. That first bite, it would just sit in your mouth and dissolve, and it was crispy and gooey and buttery, and it was mine. I mean, there are many a time that I took, a young lady who was not really experienced in that kind of culinary amazingness, and I would take them to a restaurant. Like I would take them to. Mm, you know the 3 major hotels in New York City, um, you know, had more than one really good dining room. Like the Statler Hilton and the one right on in the whatchamacallit, Central Park, right? Right, it was right off the little pond where people would have their little boats, and the other two fancy restaurants. Um, so, and each of them had two or three really great restaurants, and you knew you were in a really great restaurant if they would put the butter plates out with the two hotel bar butter, right? Um, gold things and a little dish and the two baskets of 8 rolls. That's when you knew you were in a really good restaurant. Didn't matter. I mean, there were some restaurants uptown. I mean, when I say uptown, that's usually meaning either Caribbean or European on the east side or black in the center, all the way up to the Harlem River, right? There are many great clubs that had great food too. And you would get there and they would give you the rolls and especially the music clubs that were like, you didn't even know they were there unless you knew they were there. And that was the beauty of New York. There were a lot of stuff like that. Like in Chinatown, the really great Chinese restaurants were downstairs. There'd be the big door to go into the buffet place where all the tourists would. But over the side, there'd be these steps underneath the front door. I went down to another dining room that looked like a worker's bar or something. And that's where the real good Chinese food was, right? And it wouldn't just be one; it'd be Cantonese or Sichuan or like 20 different styles, right? So and dim sum was my favorite. I love dim sum houses. So anyway, I would take girls who I would bump in and spark with, and I would say, we I'd either meet them in a university or just on the street or in a park or whatever, and I would, we would have a nice conversation, and if it was the right time, like, are you hungry? And they go, oh yes, and so I would take them, especially if we were in Central Park. There was a place near um, in Central Park where the bronze statue of Balto, what's his name? The guy who wrote all those stories about being up there in Alaska, the North Pole, and the one guy who had the dog sled. His lead dog was named Balto, and I never told any girlfriend about this. But I would show them the thing, and it states loyal and true and intelligent, and all these great things. 10 different girlfriends that I had, and not when I say girlfriend is someone that I would meet, we would spark, we would want, and we were not involved with anybody else, so we got involved with each other and we shared our lives together. And I always had 2 or 3 or 5 different places that I was living in, abandoned buildings or projects I was working on. There was a period about 8 years of my life when Soho really hit big, right before Tribeca took off, right? And I, before that happened, fixing up all these factories, kind of, going out of business, and so there'd be these gigantic big lots, somewhere between 6 and 15,000 square feet of a floor, and Soho, right? It wasn't called Soho. We named it Soho, south of House, right off Broadway, 6th Avenue over there, Broadway over there. Down there, right there on Spring Street, is kind of where 6th Avenue all the way down to Battery. Is it red yet? Oh yes, low battery. I gotta go. That's how the understory comes out.